Here's something I find absolutely fascinating. This is the third time I'm recording a video. Actually, maybe it's even the fourth. Because there's a film that was coming out that I knew was going to be so bad that I kind of wanted to get a head start. And of course, that bit me in the hind end. You see, Christmas is a very special time of year for many of us, and we appreciate the holiday and the films and television programs that are made around it. In this particular case, however, this was going to be something that would be impossible to enjoy. First and foremost, it relied on every bad movie trope in the history of bad movie tropes, from whether or not it's an action film or a superhero film. It didn't have superheroes. It certainly didn't have anything but action. In fact, it really had very little plot, maybe a plot device, which is kidnapping Santa. If you don't already know or didn't see the thumbnail, this is about Red One. Of course, this is another example of how Dwayne Johnson isn't really a movie star because he didn't really pull in the kind of audience that you need to quote unquote open a film. I'm going to take a look at this through the eyes of Variety, but just tell you that the prospects for this film were about 20 to 25 million in an opening weekend, and while it did exceed that, it's still basically a flop. Or as one of the clever articles that I saw this weekend, a rounding error for Amazon, who actually did this film. It was Amazon MGM combination, which is, I guess, how they ended up with a theatrical release. Either that or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson demanded it, and the $50 million salary he got for the film. At least that's been reported in many places. Of course, the film itself at $250 million is basically fairly ridiculous. And while this was kind of an ensemble, it's not the kind of ensemble film that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will shine in or contribute to in a large enough way that people will think of him as a movie star. Regardless, he does have a limited set of skills that he's able to put on display, and that's basically what they've done throughout this film. Now, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm not going to critique the film, just the ideas around it, and the fact that it actually got made, and the fact that it got made to go into theaters, which blows my mind because this would have been a perfect streaming, mindless project that would have required the audience to just walk in and out of the room a few times and ignore the fact that if you link 12 action scenes together, that's not really a film, which is basically what this was described as in almost every single negative review. And there are an awful lot of them because this wasn't appreciated by very many. The critics and audiences alike call out all of its faults in the very same way that I just did. Let's take a look at the Variety article that talks about the film. You see, in the box office here from Variety, Dwayne Johnson's $250 million budgeted Red One debuts to a chilly $34 million. And again, that's still better than its original prospects. They were supposed to be at $20 million or possibly as high as 25. If you read the World of Real article from a couple of days ago, they didn't expect it to even hit that high, and neither did I. This really doesn't have a lot to offer. And again, uses every bad trope you could possibly imagine and steals from better movies, including the Santa Claus. But let's set that aside. You have, of course, Santa being kidnapped and The Rock and Chris Evans leading a team, including Lucy Liu, to rescue him, which is kind of fun if you look at all the CGI creatures that are employed and things like that, which is, I guess, where you ended up with that $250 million budget that I thought would have been impossible to spend on something like this. I still don't know where all the money went, but I do know that 50 million of it went to The Rock. So in 4,000 theaters opening across North America, you have a film that does $34.1 million at debut. Now, the previews were rather laughable. In fact, you had to add up the Sunday before that plus the Thursday preview numbers to get over, well, $3.2 million. Really didn't open well. Not sure what magical sauce showed up other than maybe free tickets that got people to go to this film and get this claimed box office number. But however they did it, congratulations. The ticket sales were basically enough to top the domestic box office, which is kind of sad. Although the last several weekends of box office have been incredibly disappointing, under $100 million per weekend. Theaters are not in great shape, and neither is the movie industry. And although 2025 looks a little bit brighter, I wouldn't anticipate the movies getting better. I think you're going to get stuck with the same kind of schlock that I would call this film. And again, I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to make a lot of critical statements about it directly, just broad statements that cover the fact that the story is pretty much bland. Bland. Yeah. And according to the article here, not only did the film cost $250 million, the global marketing efforts are roughly $100 million. So you're $350 million walking in the door, and you need to make about twice that to break even. Actually, it's a little more than twice that, but we'll just leave it there to say that if this film makes $350 million, it'll be amazing. Now, again, it's an Amazon project, so it was going to go to their streaming services anyway, probably sooner rather than later. So if you were dying to see this, just wait a couple weeks, it'll be out there for you. But as we can see, this is one of those things where it just looks absolutely disgusting when you compare it to something else. Joker, Folie à Deux, which was a complete disaster from the beginning, was released by Warner Brothers just a few weeks ago, and we all laughed at it. It only earned a moderate $37 million to start against a $200 million budget. So this is not doing that well, for lack of a better way to say it. Variety claims that $34 million domestic, at least as far as the debut is concerned, isn't terrible for an original Christmas movie. And initially commissioned for streaming, Red One will need to play in theaters through the holiday season to justify its massive price tag, which I don't think Amazon's going to do. They rarely do. They usually, release it for a few weeks and then it's off to the streaming service. And that really was what this was meant for or destined for in the first place. David A. Gross, who runs a movie consulting firm here in Variety, says, "The opening is not a disaster, but it's not enough against $250 million before marketing and distribution. A film like this should not have been made for more than $150 million. I agree with you. Actually, I think it should have been made for more than $80 million. But again, I'm not on that side of the movie business. In fact, I'm not in the movie business, and nor would I want to be at this point in time, because I think the movie business is going to change dramatically, and it'll be people like you and me making movies here in the near future. Well, not near future, in the future. Let's keep it there. Overseas, this film opened to 75 markets, which gave us some indication it wasn't going to do very well. It opened to an additional 14.71 million, and bringing the tally to 50 million internationally and 84 million globally. So there you are. The big bucks from 75 markets, the United States, and the entire globe that's going to be interested in a Christmas film. Ultimately, it's going to be walking into a lot of competition down the way because, as Variety points out, you've got Wicked, you've got Gladiator 2, and you've got Moana 2. And I guess you also have some kind of a Lion King thing coming up, but I really don't think that's going to challenge much, considering I think Sonic is going to clean its clock, but that's an entirely other conversation. And of course, Variety pivots to the normal argument, which is the fact that this isn't really the way Amazon does business. They don't care how much the film does in the theaters. That's kind of the gravy for them. They just want to promote their Prime Video and all of the other services that they offer there on their Amazon.com website, which I understand, but at some point, people are going to be less consumering and more viewing, and I think you're going to find that maybe you should have spent a little bit more effort on your video and on your films and a little less on caring about who cares about Prime Video, because I don't see it as something huge in the future. And the fellow that was talking earlier, Mr. Wilson over here, says whether or not people like it, the value of these films is different for our business model. If we can put these movies out theatrically and cover our P&A, why wouldn't we? We're getting a massive marketing campaign that's being paid for before the film gets to streaming, which I guess you can see it that way. It's massive amounts of advertising for Amazon. Now, there really wasn't a lot of competition this weekend, as I mentioned quite a while ago in this video, and all I will say is this. Venom 3 was a distant second place, and it's still doing okay, but only added 7.3 million in 3,400 screens, which I'll tell you is a lot disappointing. After 4 weekends, it's done pretty well, though, sitting at 127.6 million just in the domestic box office, so that's not bad. Globally, it's going to get close to 450 million, I would say, probably pretty easily, leaving it in a pretty decent position and yet still trailing its predecessors of Venom and Let There Be Carnage. Now, Carnage kind of wrecked the domestic audience, I believe, for this film. Had it not, I think it would have had a more robust performance, but there wasn't a lot there. And I think that they wasted what would have been a great big bad for Spider-Man or for Marvel in general. Falling back to the article here from Variety, it says, with Red One failing to bring the holiday cheer, overall domestic box office revenues remain down more than 11% from 2023 and nearly 27% down from 2019. And look, the more they compare it to 2019, the better for us, because it speaks to a time when economic conditions were much better. It speaks to a time when we didn't have a lot of divisiveness in this country. We still had a lot of divisiveness, don't get me wrong, but not to the scale that we have now. And we really aren't, suffering from the massive amounts of inflation back then that we are now, which means everything is, 30, 40, 50, 60% higher. And movie tickets went up too. As we close in on the end of November, they point out that November 22nd, we're getting Wicked and Gladiator 2. And on the 27th is Moana 2, which now crowds the field very tightly during a holiday period. And I have a feeling that while the overall performance at the theaters will be better, I think those films are not going to make the kind of money that they hoped for. And I think a lot of word of mouth for Wicked could go sideways. I know that Gladiator 2 word of mouth is going to be bad. And I have a feeling that Moana 2, if it doesn't deliver at the same scale of the first film, is probably going to have a rough second weekend. Ultimately, I don't know what they were originally hoping for over there at Amazon. I'm sure The Rock was hoping that this film would perform better because it just adds another cord of wood to the burning fire that is basically telling everybody this guy is not a real movie star. Pretty good wrestler, though. Anyway, that's it for the day. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you with me? Is The Rock a movie star? Can he actually open things? Is he beneficial in a cast outside of something that's a major ensemble action movie? And yeah, did you actually have any plans to go and see Red One? If you did, I want to know why. Anyway, while you're looking down there, giving me those comments, please double check you're still subscribed to the channel. We're trying to get to 50K, so double check you're still subscribed. If you're not, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It'll help me get to 50K, which we need to get to soon. We do. I want this channel to be enormous, and I want you to help me. You are the energy that drives the channel and me, and, gives me a reason to get up in the morning. Anyway, as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.